This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.
Hello and welcome to the Covert Nerd Podcast. Thank you for listening. It means a lot to me that you take the time out of your day to hear what I have to say. Today is a solo episode and I'm going to be talking a little bit about Jeff Lemire, then going to pivot and talk about old comics with a new audience, and then lastly, talk a little bit about nostalgia and how it can be beneficial. So let's dive right in and nerd it up. I love these solo episodes, doing these from time to time, because then it's just you and me talking about nerdy stuff. Before we dive right in, though, I want to do a shout out to a listener, Matt D over at the 60s Reboot podcast. He contacted me about a previous episode and had some good comments about the Choose Your Own Adventure and some of the titles he enjoyed as a kid. One of them was a book called Appointment with Fear. And so I might take a look at doing one of those at a live event with Eddie. So thank you, Matt, for listening. And I'll put a link in the show notes to his podcast. It's called the 60s Reboot podcast, where they recast old TV series with a new cast for a new audience. So thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. And if you want to contact me and comment about the show, you can do that. You can go to covertnerd.net and see all the different ways you can contact me via email or social media. So first topic is Jeff Lemire. If you don't know, Jeff Lemire is an excellent writer, and he has put out some great books like Black Hammer more recently. But I want to specifically talk about one that I found called Descender. And Descender is an excellent book. It's about a young robot's struggle to stay alive in a universe where all the androids and robots have been outlawed, and bounty hunters go from planet to planet to try to find these robots. It's a heartfelt cosmic odyssey that pits humanity against machine, world against world. Creates a sprawling space opera, essentially. And it's an excellent book. I highly recommend it. So Descender is the first book, and then Ascender is the part 2 to this story. I should mention that it isn't just Jeff Lemire. Jeff Lemire wrote it, but DUSTIN NGUYEN is the artist. I love the combination of this. It's great storytelling with a gritty art style that fits the type of story that Jeff is trying to tell. Now, you have Descender that goes first, and then Ascender is 10 years after the Descender storyline. Magic has taken over the place of machinery that they got rid of, and so there's more magic than machinery. And Mila, the daughter of Andy and Effie from the previous book, is what this story focuses on. And so it's a really good, I highly recommend it. They're still in the middle of Ascender, part 2 of the story. You can go get a collection of the first series, book 1, and binge read on that and enjoy that. It is just an excellent story, again, about man versus machine. And you might have this and maybe you don't, but when I read something, I can usually tell if it's good very quickly, whether it's a book, comic book, or podcast. You just can't stop consuming it. This is one that you won't be able to put down. Like most of Lemire's work, though, it's excellent and addicting. The whole future dynamic between robots and humans is fascinating to me, and just fascinating to humans in general, especially these days where AI is getting closer and closer to becoming more of a reality. Like I said, the art is gritty and fits the story. And like I said, go read Descender first, and then chapter 2 is Ascender. Also, as I've said before, I like a story that has a beginning and an end. Now, I don't know if Jeff is going to do something past part 2 or not. I kind of doubt it, but at this point, I like that. It has that conflict between humans and robots, and I like how it has a beginning and it's going to have an end. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can find more information about it, but another Jeff Lemire gold standard, just like Black Hammer and some of his other stuff. This is really good stuff, and I think you will like it. Let me know. Go to covertnerd.net, and you can email me, contact me on social media, and let me know what you think about Descender and Ascender. This next series isn't new, but it's new to me. May not be new to you, but maybe it is, and that's why I want to talk about it. Because if you haven't heard of EC Comics, I highly recommend you check out some of these old books. EC Comics is a collection from Dark Horse, has reprinted these old comics most recently. When you think about Dark Horse, you might think they might be down for the count because they have lost a lot of IPs lately, and I've talked about that in previous episodes. Simply put, they have lost Conan, Star Wars, and several other IPs that they used to have, and that used to be their their staple. But they have Black Hammer, and then they have this one, the EC Archives. I think was an excellent thing to do, is reprint some old comics. But a little bit about EC Comics. Entertaining Comics, more commonly known as EC Comics, they were an American publisher of comic books specialized in horror, crime fiction, satire, some military fiction, and science fiction from the 40s and 50s. Notably, the Tales from the Crypt series. That's probably what most of you will know. In 1954-55, though, censorship prompted EC Comics to concentrate on the humor magazine, Mad Magazine. If you remember, the Comics Code of Authority was spurred on from EC Comics because they were considered edgy at that time. Now, EC was privately owned by Maxwell Gaines and specialized in educational and child-oriented stories early on. Later, it was owned by his son, William Gaines. He sold the company in 1960 and was eventually absorbed into Kinney National Company, which was later purchased by DC Comics and Warner Brothers. So that's a little bit of history on where they came from. But they were essentially, it's kind of interesting, they were essentially the cause of the Comics Code Authority that we all know from the 60s, 70s, and 80s until it was abandoned by most of the publishers in the late 90s and early 2000s. EC had success with its fresh approach and pioneered in forming relationships with its readers through its letters to the editor and its fan organization. So the letters from the editors that we all see in comics, that was started by EC Comics, getting feedback from their fans. Also, EC Comics promoted its stable of illustrators, allowing each to sign his art and encouraging them to develop unique styles. The company additionally published one-page biographies of them in the comic books, which was a contrast to the industry's common practice, which credits were often missing. So they really emphasized the creators and tried to give them a little bit more push than they did normally. So again, these guys really pushed the envelope at that time. They were also known for their shock endings, like Weird Fantasy number 18 in 1953. The story depicted a human astronaut, a representative of the Galactic Republic, visiting the planet Cybrenia, inhabited by robots. He finds the robots divided into functionally identical orange and blue races, one of which has fewer rights and privileges than the other. The astronaut determines that due to the robots' bigotry, the Galactic Republic should not admit the planet until these problems are resolved. In the final panel, he removes his helmet, revealing himself to be a person of color, which in 1953 America was shocking. Almost all of their stories had an ending like this. They were around 8 to 10 pages typically each story, so not a lot of detail, but still they were able to fit a lot into those 10 pages. Another fun series from EC Comics is Adventures into the Unknown. One of the stories simply titled Haunted House. It might be a Scooby-Doo episode, and maybe Scooby-Doo, some of the inspiration came from this because a couple has to stay overnight in a haunted house in order to get their inheritance from a rich relative. The lawyer in charge of the estate tries to scare them out of the house so that they won't collect the inheritance because in the meantime, he was embezzling money from the estate. And he made the house appear to be haunted by dressing up in a skeleton costume. And of course, you have the reveal at the end where they find out it's just a guy in a costume. It's a classic story, and the art from 1948, it just screams 40s and 50s, and I love it. It's just so cool seeing some of this old stuff. At the time these were printed and written and drawn, they were considered pretty edgy. Like I said, this is before the Comics Code of Authority. There's some panels where you actually see a guy getting strangled and he's dead on the floor with his tongue hanging out, which today maybe doesn't seem that edgy, but you have to remember this is the early 50s, late 40s. That was very edgy for that time. Talking about demons and other things as well. I mean, what a great idea, though, that Dark Horse did in reprinting some of these old stories. Rather than create new characters and new stories, why not go back 75 years and retell stories that a lot of people have never seen before? This concept fits the saying, why recreate the wheel? You have great stories that hardly anybody these days has seen. Why not reprint them and give a chance for new readers to experience and enjoy an old story? IDW also released a special limited run edition that features the Best Artist Edition, but I believe Dark Horse reprints the complete and unabridged comic series. IDW was just emphasizing certain artists from that generation. Take a look at these. You can get these volumes put together. I think they put 4 issues together, so you're getting quite a bit for your money. The people who created these comics and stories were the pioneers of the industry that we enjoy today. They were learning as they went along. They didn't have anybody else to copy. They created the medium, and the creators today are perfecting that medium. So go check it out. I'll put a link in the show notes. I'll put some covers from some of these that I mentioned so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It's really cool. I think you should at least check out one volume and see what you think. It's just a fun walk down memory lane. You can feel and see the optimism that this timeline had, because a lot of these are, especially the sci-fi ones, we're in space and we're exploring other planets. Just the optimism that they had back then was just very profound for me. So I highly recommend you check it out. If you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you can tell I'm a bit of a nostalgia nut, obviously. Seeing these old comics, even though I didn't live in this time period, I still like the vibe that I get from them. Yes, I'll admit some of it's a bit corny, but getting a glimpse of what people were living through at that time period and what they were thinking is really fun to me. So check it out and let me know what your thoughts are. I want to talk a little bit about the Super Nintendo Classic, which is the SNES Classic for short. My kids gave this to me a year or two ago, I think. And to clarify, if you don't know what the SNES Classic is, it's a small Super Nintendo console that has 21 games built into it. No cartridges, just simply the base system and 2 controllers. It looks almost identical to the original system, at least as far as the controller goes. The main system is obviously smaller, but it originally came out in 1990, the system did, and it plays just like the original. Again, what's old is new again. It's cool that Nintendo releases these old systems again so that you can go back down memory lane. Some of the games included are Zelda, Metroid. Best of all, you can hack it and play even more retro games from the NES to Sega Genesis and more. Nostalgia is in a big way. I think with all that's going on in the world, I believe people like to go back to what they believe in their mind was a simpler, better time. Whether it was or not is debatable, because we all have rose-colored glasses as when we look back. But if you go back to when you were 10, it was a simpler time, or at least I hope it was for you. When you're 10, you don't have to concern yourself with a job, house payments, other bills, other responsibilities. The most you have to worry about is who you're going to hang out with today and what game are you going to play. Some may knock people who like to talk about and buy things from their childhood. I would say, like most things, there is a healthy and unhealthy balance that needs to be adhered to. For example, don't put a second mortgage on your house to buy that one-of-a-kind limited series Star Wars action figure. The guys over at the Mega podcast, Make Eternia Great Again podcast, they talk about Masters of the Universe, came up with the idea of having a mini collection of Motu figures. I believe the number to be considered mini was 8 to 10 figures. I thought this was a good way to not go overboard, but still have a piece of your childhood. Overall, I don't think it's bad to have a few things from your past. You know, the feelings and the memories that come rushing back to you when you hold that one thing from your childhood and instantly you're 10 again. And you have your whole world to explore. Even if it's only for a few minutes, at least let people enjoy it. Let them share their memories with others, with you, their kids, their family, and the excitement they got to experience when they were 10 or whatever age that is. A friend told me about his wife that didn't really understand why he collected and talked about old Motu figures. He said because it brings back feelings and memories from a good time in his life and made him feel good to revisit those old memories again and talk about them with other people. She still didn't understand why. A few months later, her birthday came around and he bought her an original bear that she had as a kid. And she mentioned this just a few times, having lost that bear during a move when she was a kid and wished she had never lost it. When she opened the box, she was stunned and just started crying as the memories of the bear came rushing back because he had bought her the exact bear she had lost off of eBay. And he said, "This is why I buy and talk about these old figures. That story nailed it for me. And from then on, she understood exactly what he was talking about. Maybe you have a similar story. If so, you can email me, cn@covertnerd.net, or go to covertnerd.net to find out all the other ways you can get in touch with me. I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can access all the information from the website on whatever device you're listening to this podcast. Let me know your thoughts on this episode and any other ideas you have for future episodes. Topics and ideas, I would love to hear them from you. And let's talk. We're in this together. Again, thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. Go to covertnerd.net for information about this episode, previous episodes, and ways you can get in touch with me. And again, until next time, nerd it up.